Welcome back, everybody, to another episode 2023, hot off the press. We are continuing our talks, and today I have a special guest. Today we have Dr. Clarence M. Lee Jr., a brother that I appreciate and am so proud of. Clarence is the president and CEO at Exhort Health. He's a physician, entrepreneur, and coach on the Forbes Business Council, the author of Persist, and one of my favorites, a U.S. Air Force veteran. Clarence, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Excited to be on and looking forward to add some value to the listeners.
Outstanding. Well, folks, we're going to be speaking about and opportunely the pivot. Everybody is looking at some way, shape, form of a pivot come January. And, I'm laughing at all the pictures about, how much the gyms are going to make this month and all things like that. But pivot is something that we are all inherently going to face some way, shape, or form. But before we get into the pivot and all those things, tell us a little bit about you.
You shared a little bit of my bio there, but I'm a physician entrepreneur from Kansas City, Missouri, originally, raised by a single mom, went through a lot of struggles coming up, just really developed this idea that I was going to be a success. And no matter what kind of came my way, I was going to keep pushing. So found some mentors along the way, hit a bunch of roadblocks on my journey. But, my story is one of persistence and resilience. And now I use my platform online. I use my organization to really just share an encouraging message with folks and let them know that, troubles may come, but if you keep pressing, your dreams and aspirations, you can have them in life.
When I selected you after looking at your background, first of all, seeing that you served in the United States Air Force, flight physician, that's enough to be proud of you. But seeing how you went from one thing to another, and then you went to get your doctorate, you became an MD. That's not all. You got an MBA too, right? So a doctor, an MBA, and now you're on your own journey outside of the health system. And I'm saying more like the corporate system. You established your own stuff. You're doing your own thing, and it is something to be inspired about. And in all those times, you mentioned your childhood, there were a lot of pivots. There were a lot of decisions to be made. There were a lot of roadblocks that you mentioned. But how did you process that time when it came to pivot?
I always share, and my first book is titled Well, My Mom Says, but I always talk about my upbringing, because if people don't quite understand the things I went through growing up, they don't always get my ambition or my drive or my work ethic. And so for me, and you probably hear this a lot from folks that didn't grow up with it much, but we were always pivoting. I stayed in probably 12 different states. I was always the new kid at school. And the reasons for moves could be jobs or financial, or, my mom sent me to stay with my grandma for a little bit because she was trying to figure out things after my parents got divorced. I had been pivoting my whole life, year to year. I've always been like that. And it's just been a necessity for life. So I say that because as I became an adult and I got ready to choose different careers, and this didn't work out and I had to change this, I was built for that from a very young age. And so being able to process change, being able to adapt, being able to learn who I needed in my corner in every situation that I was in, some of those are some of the things that helped me to kind of navigate every pivot that I've had in life.
And it's amazing how inadvertently, our parents, with whatever situation may face or they come their way, they train us to certain things in the future. Undoubtedly, fear crept in, not only in the times your mom had to do something, but as a child, the uncertainty creeps up on us. Children are a little more resilient than adults are for some reason or another. But fear always comes to try to challenge us during these times. So, how did you address that fear component in Pivot?
So I'll speak from at this point what I'm really passionate about at this kind of juncture in my life is entrepreneurship, specifically in the medical space. And so I'll speak to physicians that are looking to transition into entrepreneurship and some of the fears that I had. These fears don't go away, okay? But some of the fears that I had was that, hey, I didn't have the training as a doctor to go out and start my own organization. I wasn't going to be able to compete as a small practice with some of the corporate practices that have huge marketing budgets and are in every network imaginable. These are some of the fears that I had. But for me, specifically, and I'll go 50,000-foot fear just in general, I decided a long time ago that I was either going to let fear run my life or I was going to face those fears and overcome them. And I will tell you this, um, all of the big wins, every big win, everything that any person would say, look at my life and say, that is a success. Every single one of them came on the back end or on the other side of a fear. There was a fear door that I had to go through to get to what anyone would call success in my life. And so learning how to address fear, learning how to move in the face of fear is really a muscle that you have to train yourself to do, because one of the most significant powers that fear has, and this is such a great question, is fear gets you to not move. The power of fear is in action. And so when I teach on this, I teach all you have to do is move, is act, because if you can continue to move and act in the face of fear, that's how you build your courage. But for me, it was like, hey, am I going to stay in this little fear box my entire life, or do I double down and take a risk on myself, face those fears, and see what's on the other side?
I love that you liken fear to a door. And yes, folks, double down. There are people all over, all around us that are doubling down on making sure that we don't get where we should. And so it's time for us to really put the coins on us, put it on us to be able to succeed. But I love that you bring in the fact of action being the combative thing to fear. Fear will paralyze you. It will. And if it had a day, it will do that to you every single day. Now, I take the fear challenge and I break down that door and I'm heading my way, right? I'm adding action. What should I consider before the actual pivot? Because there are a lot of things that could happen, but we should think of this as we progress.
Yeah, I think one of the most effective ways to address fear is to find someone that has overcome that very thing. Find a mentor or someone that is a couple steps ahead of you that can give you some insight on some of the things that may be coming for you ahead. I feel like that is the most effective way. I will say this, I can't leave that question without saying this. there is a tendency, and myself included, there is a tendency for us, and people have heard this term, you know, paralysis by analysis, or analysis paralysis, meaning like you get so fixated on trying to identify every consideration prior to making the move. Well, what if this happens, or what if this happens, and this contingency plan and this contingency plan, that many times that slows our action down. So I'm not saying you don't need to consider anything. What I'm saying is the fastest way to find out the high value considerations is to find a mentor, somebody that is there, that has went there. And so when I'll just tell my story about Exhort Health, starting Exhort Health. I went out and I sought after physicians, specific physicians, entrepreneurs that had done the thing that I was trying to do, or were actually doing the thing I was trying to do. And those have been the greatest resources for me as I have navigated the startup journey. Um, and they're irreplaceable. The ease that comes after chatting with a mentor, and just kind of the validation that comes with, did you go through this, or did this happen to you? Oh, okay, that happened to you too. That really helps along the way. So if you're going to go it alone, you're going to double down on yourself. I would encourage each person, find a mentor, reach out to somebody that is doing that very thing or has done that very thing, and share completely and honestly with them. Be open and honest what's going on, because that's going to be the best way. What are you afraid of? What are you fearful of? What are you worried about? Have those true kind of authentic conversations, because those folks they are there, and they can share that insight with you prior to you starting your journey.
Yeah, absolutely great advice there. I was in a conversation yesterday and I mentioned mentorship specifically, and having one below, at, and above, and even there where your dreams lie, right? Having someone that can kind of guide you through those facets in your journey. So great advice there. Now I take that door, open it, I get my mentor, and I'm going down my way. There are some things that we just don't know that could, trouble us. Stamp a no on our journey. So, what should I be looking for during that pivot move that could actually be a hampering effect on me?
The one thing that I have learned the most as I've ventured out on entrepreneurship and went out on my own, and I will say this and repeat it and scream it over and over, because this was the main thing I learned. Um, Details matter. The smallest details matter. Know your contracts, know your business. So, where I grew up in, be about your business. You need to know your business. So the small little things that you think may be insignificant, or somebody else is going to handle that, or if you are an entrepreneur, specifically a founder, I needed to understand how to do somebody else's job. So when I hired them, I knew what they were doing for me. So the easiest example, in our world, we deal with a lot of insurance companies, we deal with a lot of billing, and my friend had zero knowledge about billing. Zero. I'm a doctor, regular doctor. You're employed. You got a billing team. You don't even deal with it. As an entrepreneur, I got to be about my business. I need to know billing. I need to know clearinghouses. I need to know coding. I need to know what the billers are doing for me. And those are very small details sometimes in the doctor's mind, who's thinking diagnosis, okay, prognosis, how do I treat this? What is the management plan? We're really on the clinical side a lot, and we may, make the assumption that these small details don't matter. Same thing with contracts, leases, service agreements. All of the details matter. So I would encourage everyone, know your business, know your numbers. The details absolutely do matter. So there's going to be, and it got me too, there's going to be a tendency to say, oh, I don't need to worry about that. In the startup phase, I'm screaming it right now. Yes, you do. Know your numbers. Know your contracts. Know your service agreements. Know what people are doing for you. And know how to do their job. Maybe not at the detail or the speed, because they're going to be subject matter experts. Don't get me wrong, but understand enough about what they're doing so that you can at least assess if they're doing their job appropriately.
Absolutely great. You know, in the military, we have this thing that we echo often: trust but verify.
Come on now. Come on now.
And we say it for a reason. It's not that we have lack of trust in the SME, it's that we need to know enough to be able to check. How can we check? How can we validate if we're not as savvy, or at least to the point to know that should not be happening, right? So
Come
great
on.
advice, Doc. That's beautiful. You know, you talked about tendencies. There is a tendency once you've arrived at your pivot mark, whatever you marked down the map, uh, and you know when the pivot is stabilized, right? Because you're going to get there if you're consistent enough and you continue to move, as you had said. But when I get there, should I settle?
Oh man. That's a tough question for me. I don't see settle. I just, I have come so far in my life, that just the idea of something being impossible, it just doesn't sit with me, because it, I have already done the impossible in my world. Like, I'll just tell you really quick and what I mean by that. There's no 4-year college graduates in my family, no medical doctors, no flight surgeons, no college athletes, no millionaires, no business owners. It was impossible. What I am living, what I am doing, was presented as an impossibility when I was growing up. And so for me, I believe each person has a vision that has been given to them, an ideal that they want to aspire to, that is in that impossible realm. And it's going to take the most out of you. It's going to take everything that you've got to actually do it. But if you are still breathing, if you still have life inside of you, that means that you still have value to give. That means that there's an impact in this world that you are supposed to do. And so in settling, I hear that there's no more impact. In settling, I hear that there's no more value for me to bring. In settling, I hear that there's not another level. And I just can't subscribe to that for my life. I feel like if God's going to bless me with it tomorrow, then there's some work for me to do tomorrow. There is some value for me to bring tomorrow. There's a life for me to impact tomorrow. So no, absolutely don't settle. There's always a next level. There's a next thing, even if it's mentorship, even if it's you taking your position to now go back, reach a hand and bring somebody else up. That is the impact. That's not selling. That's seeding into the next generation, right? So yeah, I don't believe our work stops. I feel like if God bless me with a day today, I'm going to use my efforts to make an impact today. We're not going to settle.
I absolutely love that. And part of my daily prayer is, Lord, just like you said, you gave me this day for a reason. I may not be doing what I did yesterday. I will be doing what I'm doing today. And so I got to find that out, where it is that I need to impact. So I love and subscribe to the same thought, Doc. I'm telling you, settling is not in my vocabulary. Well, you've been through plenty of pivots. We mentioned some of them earlier in the episode. We mentioned some as you're going through your entrepreneur route now. What are some things that you've learned through your pivot that maybe we have not covered that you would like the audience to know?
I think the main thing I want to share is many times on your way to your final destination, starting that journey, you may not know the path. So for me, I originally wanted to be an architect. I wanted to be an engineer when I was younger. And then my mom was a nurse. She introduced me to medicine. Then I wanted to be a doctor. Then I got into basketball. I played basketball in college. Then I wanted to play basketball in the NBA. You know, couple years after in the college, I realized the NBA is not knocking down my door. Then I was like, oh, I want to become a doctor. After medical school, I said I wanted to do surgery. All my mentors were surgeons. So that was what I went to medical school to be. Started training to become a surgeon, realized I didn't want that life. Pivoted. Went to my commander at the time, said, sir, I'm not going to finish surgery training. What can I do? That's when the opportunity to become a flight surgeon came up. Never heard of it, didn't know anything about it, never flew a jet, was not infatuated with aviation at all. But the opportunity presented itself because I made a choice and I said a no to something. And then this other opportunity arrives. I end up loving occupational medicine, ended up loving being a flight surgeon. That is what I do now, actually. So I go out, I serve in the military. I say, okay, I want to go and get a civilian job. All right, I'm going to go and work for someone. I start getting into corporate medicine, realize that, hey, I don't like how they treating the doctors around here. I don't know if I want to do this forever. Pivot again. How can I go and do this on my own? I realize, hey, I'm a doctor. I'm not trained in business. Now I got to go learn about business. Now I got to go to business school. These were not things, if you had said at 18, this was my path, wouldn't have been able to tell you. I only saw the next kind of staircase or the next Y in the road as I was walking and going after something. So to sum that up, if you have a focus, go after that focus. Put everything you have into that focus. And as you go down that path, the next opportunity will present itself. But many times people will try to pursue 2 or 3 or 4 things all at the same time. And that is the person, right? That's the tragedy, where someone is not able to find their path because they never choose one. They're doing a bunch of different things. So that's what I would just encourage folks. You're talking about, pivoting, you're talking about our journeys in life. For me, I did not know I would be here at 18. This is not what I thought I was going to be doing. But as you gain experience, as you go through things, it is my personal belief, there's no wasted time. God is going to use all of those experiences, all of those little checks that you have. Now he's going to use that. And so today, a significant portion of Exhort Health's business is occupational medicine. Is me going doing business to business, dealing with other businesses and helping them for their healthcare needs. So none is lost, but I think the one thing is go after your one thing. And as you're going after that, other opportunities will present themselves.
Well, I'm so happy you got to those whys. You went and took the path you did. It led you to me today, and I'm so fortunate to have you on the show today. If I could summarize this entire episode in 4 things, would be: don't fear, move, focus, and don't settle. Folks, the pivots are going to come your way, and some of them are going to throw you for a loop. Focus on what it is you want to focus on and move. Now, Doc, if they wanted, the listener, those that are viewing this video right now, wanted to get a hold of you, what would be the best way for them to do so?
My website is simply clarenceleejr.com. And, on social media, I'm at drclarenceleejr.com. All of the social medias, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. But yeah, just Dr. Clarence Lee Jr. If you Google me, connect with me online. Like I said, for me, it's really about sharing my failures, sharing the things that didn't always go great, and how your journey is. But one is, my message is one of encouraging people to continue to press forward. I do believe in my heart of hearts that vision that you have in your brain, that is the intention for your life. That is the intention for your life.
Absolutely wonderful, folks. We're going to have all that information as part of the show notes and the video, to include the books, because he has books out there, y'all, and you have to read those and support. Doc, thank you so much for taking your time to share the pivot with us early in the year, enough for us to make some adjustments. And we really appreciate the work you're doing in the medical field and your service. We thank you for that. Folks, today's episode is sponsored by a handful of folks, and now I'm going to take this time to thank them. Triad Leadership Solutions, SupaPass, which powers our website and app, Southern Sweet and Sassy Coffee, and Harchester, London. Thank you to our sponsors. If you've enjoyed this episode and learned something interesting about the topic covered today, make sure to subscribe and let us know by leaving a comment right now. And we're always looking for new ideas and guests that can add to our show. So if you know someone that have a topic that you would like for us to feature on the podcast, send us an email at triadleadershipsolutions@gmail.com. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode where we dissect leadership from another angle. And as we like to end the show, success to you.